victory. He was close most of last year and a time or two this year, and things finally came together. Last Saturday night, Las Vegas, Nevada, Art Ekman has the story.
The odds makers paid no more than the usual attention to Mike LaRocco until the Silver Bowl Supercross field hit turn one with a hustling Hoosier out in front on his factory Suzuki number 6. A lot of railbirds believe LaRocco to be the best guy in the series, never to have won a race. He spent Saturday night in fast company. Number 1 is series champ Jeff Stanton. Number 3, former champion Jeff Ward. Stanton, who took over second here, appeared 100% healed from his recent shoulder separation. And note that Jeff Matasevich is now up to third and seems intent on providing additional excitement. Sure enough, watch him try to take the inside away from Stanton over the finish line jump. That puts him in way too hot. He hits Stanton, tumbles right into a TV cameraman. But this guy's a trooper. He never flinched, kept right on shooting as the guy they call Chicken clambered out of the haystack and scrambled back on board his Kawasaki, bound for an eventual 10th place finish. The replay offers another angle on a pass Jeff had no chance of making. In his defense, there were precious few places to even try a pass on this tight, slick track. LaRocco didn't have to worry about that. He had only lappers to contend with en route to a gate-to-flag win that made it all the more difficult to believe he'd never won one before. Behind him, the Stanton-Ward duo ended with this miscue by the reigning champion. Watch how hard he lands. The front wheel never gets a bite. He rides right up into the face of that berm and into the bales. That couldn't be much fun for a guy with a recently separated shoulder, but the perseverant Stanton climbed back on and eventually finished 5th. With no challengers in sight, LaRocco was cruising when behind him, Larry Brooks was torpedoed by Denny Stevenson. We get just a glimpse and the flagman gets the worst of it. And so we feast our eyes on a first-ever Supercross scene, the pride of LaPorte, Indiana. Mike LaRocco scoring his first Camel Supercross Series win. The results show series leader Jean-Michel Bale and Damon Bradshaw, 3rd and 4th. They worked their way up from a last-place start. Reporting for Motoworld, I'm Art Ekman.
All right, thanks, Art. Hey, when you're hot, you're hot. LaRocco took home the winner's purse. His mom won $1,200 playing the Vegas slot machines. Party time. I think we're going to stick right with the Supercross action. Go to the 125 class in Vegas. Bob Varsha has a rundown on what happened there.
Round 7 on the AMA 125 Western Region Supercross in Las Vegas featured a tight race course, a couple of front runners on the upswing from injury, and the latest success for the most dominant team in the class. By now, fans are used to seeing the number 20 Suzuki of Buddy Antunez up front, chased here by the Honda of runaway series leader Jeremy McGrath and Yamaha-mounted Jimmy Button. Still fighting the effects of a wrist injury that sidelined him for 2 races earlier this year, Antunez came under attack and was finally passed by McGrath, Western leader for the incredibly successful Peak-sponsored Pro Circuit Honda team and a 4-time winner this year. Moments later, Antunez was challenged by Button, who has improved his finish in each race this year since breaking his leg at the U.S. round of the World Championships in 1990. His pass of Antunez put Button into 2nd, his best showing of the year. Now that left Antunez to settle 3rd with fellow Californian and Kawasaki rider Michael Craig, number 88. This is a do-or-die season for Craig, who's in his last year in the 125 class, having already achieved enough points for advancement to the 250s. He and Antunez went wheel to wheel, corner after corner on the tight, short Silver Bowl circuit, one that rewarded speed and finesse over muscle and stamina. Rarely out of the top 3 this season, Craig kept his fading title hopes alive by getting by Antunez for 3rd, helped along when Antunez rode high and hooked a hay bale. Take another look in slow motion and decide for yourself whether Craig deliberately rode Antunez up into the rough stuff or not. Either way, Buddy faded from there, eventually finishing 15th. Up front, McGrath moved away for his 5th win.
I feel like it's vital to keep the system growing and keep new riders entering the professional ranks.
Of course, not all riders that participate in amateur Supercross are headed for the pro ranks. There are other reasons to ride.
We come out here and we have a good time. We get to have fellowship with the people around us. You get to see people all over the country. It's just great. It's a great feeling just to be out here, just around it, and so associate with everybody with motocross.
For those that do harbor thoughts of Supercross stardom, the Amateur Supercross Series was created. Riders that qualify for the finals at any of the amateur events held in conjunction with most pro Supercrosses will be invited to participate in the National Championship Amateur AMA Supercross Finals. The amateur finals, to be held June 6th through June 9th at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, will precede round 16 of the Camel Supercross Series. Indications are a huge crowd of riders will be on hand in Oklahoma for the championship event. In addition, look for big league scouts to show up in force. You can almost bet tomorrow's pro Supercross stars will be banging bars at this year's amateur.
5 rounds was finally derailed Saturday night in Atlanta. Chris Larson has the story.
Damon Bradshaw came to a muddy Atlanta Fulton County Stadium fresh from an international Supercross victory in Tokyo, his first win of the year.
You know, the first of the year didn't start out real strong for me. I mean, I was in there and I got some thirds, but it wasn't winning. And, you know, my confidence is down a little bit, but I've gotten that back now, and, you know, I'm ready to go out and win and try to, you know, run down some points.
Meanwhile, past Supercross champ Jeff Ward pondered his recent string of crashes, and reigning #1 Jeff Stanton was bubbling over with championship enthusiasm.
Anything I can do to make history in motocross, that's what I want to do. It's just a goal of mine this year to win again, and you know, I just want to achieve those goals and win races and championships.
The start was critical. Number 11 Bradshaw nailed it. Anticipating a difficult track to pass on, Damon zinged his Yamaha out front, leaving the passing to others. Stanton grabbed second. His Honda teammate and series point leader Jean-Michel Bale was third and pressuring. That pressure paid immediate dividends. Watch the mistake by Stanton. Bale couldn't capitalize, but that was a sign of things to come. A lap later, Stanton left a hole in the bottom that the French Foreign Legion could have marched through. Bale said, "Merci beaucoup," and took over second. Jean-Michel then tried to force a Bradshaw mistake, and sure enough, Damon got a little sloppy in exactly the same spot where Stanton first bobbled. But the kid kept his cool and held the Frenchman at bay. Shut out early in the year, he's now won twice in 2 weeks. Damon, are you doing something different?
No, actually, I just started riding the edge a little bit, you know. You can be consistent and win a championship, but you got to win races too, and that's what I done tonight. And also, all you people out there hollering for me, man, I tell you, and waving those American flags, all right.
Thanks, Chris. That Atlanta Supercross tops this week's Honda scoreboard, where you'll get all the major race results all season long in one convenient stop. Bradshaw's first win of the year moves him right onto Stanton's rear wheel in the points chase. They're second and third behind Bale, who holds his point lead with a runner-up finish Saturday night. On Sunday, the pro riders surrendered the spotlight to the Race for Trophies amateur supercrossers. They were led by Chris Young, who came all the way from Canyon Lake, California, to grab the gold. Good day for Suzuki, 4 of the top 5 spots. And in the 125cc division, Brian Swink scored an impressive come-from-behind victory. And with that story, once again, here's Chris Larson.
As the young Chargers of American Motocross hit the first turn, number 31, Doug Henry, grabbed a healthy hole shot, but the hardest Charger of all was nowhere to be seen. Henry had it his way early, while behind him, it's a scramble for position, leading to what looks like a pretty routine Supercross crash. But Jason Langford is visibly upset. The slow-mo replay tells us why. Jason's the victim of a kamikaze attack and catches a rear wheel right in the back of the head. Sure, he's mad, but he's also very, very lucky. Good battle up front now. Number 19, Talon Volan, with the inside block pass on Henry. But Talon whacked the lip of a jump and almost unloaded. He lost all his momentum, and Henry didn't need a second invitation to reclaim the lead. Volan tries him again, and this time the consequences are even worse. That dropped the Independence, Missouri Suzuki rider into the clutches of the fastest man on the track. Number 42, Brian Swink, recovered from a terrible start, chased Volan right past the early leader Henry, then caught Talon out of shape and handily triple jumped his way to a lead he had held all the way to the checkered flag. Swink said a good line was the key to his comeback.
Everyone was going to the outside, and the jump had a kicker in it, so they're having to slow down. And I found a good line on the inside, and I could hit it fast.
Reporting from Motoworld, I'm Chris Larson.
Coming up next on ESPN's Moto World.
And then as he got better in Europe and winning world championships and all that, it became his dream also to come and race in the U.S. to measure himself up against the Americans that are the best in the world in the recent years. And so that made, I didn't have to go over and convince him. I just had to facilitate it and made it, help it make it happen. And convince the people at Honda it would be a good thing to have him race here. And next thing he was here.
Not only was he here, but he was putting his personal stamp on the prestigious U.S. Supercross scene right from the get-go. It quickly became evident to the Frenchman, though, that if he was to beat the American riders, he would have to turn it up all the way. That realization and the adjustment period that followed resulted in hard-learned lessons. The Frenchman's determination, though, never wavered. In 1990, his second full season, Jean-Michel Bayle had arrived. His learning period was over. The crashes of a year ago turned into checkered flags. Bayle won 5 races and finished second in the standings. Thus far in the 1991 Supercross title chase, Bayle leads the series standings with 3 wins. 1991 could be the year that a foreign rider beats the American superstars at their own game.
I didn't try to beat the American. I just come to US for do my goal. I want to be champion here. It's like a world championship. I don't try, to be French and try to beat American. If I can put, the American flag on my back, I don't care. I just try to do what I want to do and try to win a championship like any American rider.
Well, clearly Jean-Michel is not like any American rider, or at least that's the perception of those who feel the Frenchman is moving in on their territory. And at least one of those Americans feels pretty strongly about it. Once again, Mark Phillips.
When you look around the paddock, more times than not, Jean-Michel Bayle is by himself. There aren't many American riders who have gone out of their way to befriend him, although to a man, they respect his ability.
He's real fluent. I mean, he's really good on the bike. I think he cries about too many things. If everything's not right, he cries about it and doesn't accept it and go on. But, he has his ways and everybody else has their ways. But, like I said, he's real fluent. He rides similar to David Bailey, I would say, and he has a lot of talent, but then he has his problems also.
It's good to see somebody like him come over and put forth the effort. He's definitely got more talent than anybody that's ever came out of Europe. He's doing a great job, but he's got a long ways to go to win a championship. He can win races, but it's tough to win that championship.
As you can tell, there is some deep-seated animosity brewing behind the scenes. Why? It's simple. Bayle is a serious threat to Bradshaw, Stanton, and anyone who has legitimate championship aspirations.
I don't really like the guy. I mean, it's not for any reason. Anything he's done to me, I don't like him because I race against him. And, he's not from the United States, and he's over here racing on our ground. And I want to beat him worse than anybody out there, just as long, just as well as Stanton and everybody else.
No one ever said success breeds friendship. Just ask Bob Hurricane Hanna and his racing contemporaries. Time and time again, the athlete who stands out from the crowd travels along a lonely path. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Mark Phillips.
Thank you, Mark. Now, the next time I need my motorcycle, Putt Mossman used to tie a ladder to the seat of his Harley and climb all the way to the top while he rode around a dirt track. Could be, I suppose, and I doubt if old Putt really worried very much about his image.
Most famous of all daredevils, Evel Knievel, and his son Robbie carries on the family tradition. In Florida last fall, he attempted a world record jump, 30 cars, 15 feet farther than his Caesar's Palace fountain jump a couple of years back. Now, he needed a ski jump to get up to speed. His dad was first to use that technique 20 years ago at Wembley Stadium in London, jumping double-decker buses. Stunts like this don't happen much anymore, perhaps because they look too easy. The suspension on a modern motocrosser cushions the landing, which was always Evel's downfall. Robbie's problem is getting stopped. He's got to jump out of the place, then lay it down just short of an Armco barrier. For the record, that's the longest car jump ever made, and I don't think it should affect our image one way or the other. I just wish I'd been around to see Putt Mossman climb up that ladder on the seat of that old motorcycle.
And finally, a quick review of the moto news, beginning with what was supposed to be a glorious farewell tour. Rick Johnson, undisputed king of American motocross until he broke his wrist a year ago, sat out last weekend's Atlanta Supercross. He's already announced this will be his final season. Wanted to win a race, but hurt too badly for him to ride last Saturday night. Here's good news. Vail battle in the National Outdoor Motocross opener. They had a 7-inch downpour soaking into the sandy surface of Gatorback Cycle Park. When it was over, the stars of Team Honda got down to business, and Chris Larson has the story.
The story thus far in Supercross has been Team Honda. Most observers felt their dominance would carry over to the outdoor series. One of the reasons for Honda's current status is Supercross points leader Jean-Michel Bayle. The other, standing right next to Bayle, is the defending 250 outdoor champ Jeff Stanton. The pre-race consensus was that one or the other would take home the Gainesville gold.
Only one person's going to do it, and this person who works the hardest and is the most consistent, so pretty much sums it up.
Moto 1 of the 1991 250cc Outdoor National Championship. Number 8, Jean-Michel Bayle gets the whole shot and takes off. The angular Frenchman displayed the skill that earned him the 1989 250cc World Championship. While behind him, number 1 Stanton staked a solid claim on second, but couldn't make any inroads on the leader. Meanwhile, former 250 champ Jeff Ward, number 3, upheld Kawasaki honors by putting in a solid ride for third. At the checkers, it was Bayle, Stanton, and Ward, and the battle lines were drawn. Moto 2, and the Frenchman was looking for the sweep, but Stanton's championship pride and physical conditioning paid a premium in the second stanza. The Michigan rider took the lead from his teammate around the halfway point. Bayle tried to hang on, but Jeff was clearly in control. Yamaha's Damon Bradshaw finished third in Moto 2. Combined with his fourth in the first moto, that gave Damon third overall. Ward stumbled a bit on that second leg, settling for fourth overall. Stanton's win in the second moto gave him the day's overall victory. But equal points are paid for each moto, so the Honda teammates left Gainesville tied with 47 points apiece.
Well, clearly that Stanton and Bayle battle is going to be a season-long affair, but it's not the only great matchup in national motocross. The 125 class has its own title rivalry. Once again, here's Chris.
Team Suzuki's Guy Cooper won last year's 125 title after a titanic year-long struggle with this man, Kawasaki's Mike Kiedrowski. Each of them won 4 races, extending the title chase down to the final moto of the year. At the drop of the gate, the Kiedrowski-Cooper war picked up where it left off in 1990. Sacramento, California's Tyson Boland, aboard Kawasaki's number 311, led the moto until Kiedrowski number 4 found his way by. Kiedrowski, who last year rode with Honda, has made the transition to the green machines work nicely for him. Behind Kiedrowski, Cooper, number 1, also found his way by Boland, and the chase was on. Kiedrowski held off his longtime rival to take the first moto of the year over Cooper. Boland held on for third. Moto 2 and Kiedrowski is nowhere to be seen. A terrible start relegated the Californian to the back of the pack. He never recovered. Up front, Guy Cooper was taking full advantage as he took moto number 2. Here's a look at the overall results. Cooper's second and a first gave him his first win at Gatorback in 10 years of trying. Kiedrowski ended up 11th in the second moto to salvage third overall. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Chris Larson.
Now, anyone traveling in style.
In the past, factory teams shuttled their motocross equipment from race to race in these box vans. Mechanics logged thousands of miles a year in the 6-wheelers, and the general rule was 1 van per rider. A 5-man team could be literally scattered across 5 states at any given time. Inevitably, one team got fed up with all the logistical nightmares. Thus did Kawasaki debut this state-of-the-art 18-wheel motocross team rig, a transporter to rival anything found in NASCAR or IndyCar racing. Like those in the 4-wheeled arena, this semi-tractor trailer doubles as rolling workshop for all the team bikes and home away from home.
I don't mind what I work out of. I think it's going to really help the mechanics out a lot, and then for sponsorship also, and it gives everybody a lot more room, and it draws attention. That's what the sport's about, and it's going to be nice. I really like it.
A tip of the Motoworld helmet to the Kawasaki guys for escalating the sport 1 notch. Wonder how long it'll be before we see red, yellow, and white tractor trailers to match. Plus action, Brian Swink won the 125 class despite hitting the dirt. Honda-mounted Swink won convincingly over teammate Jeremy Buell and leads the 125cc Eastern Region standings. 250cc main event, Team Honda again showed the way. Reigning Supercross champ Jeff Stanton, the star of the show, and Chris Larson has the details.
Unseasonably cold weather and muddy conditions greeted the Supercross stars at the 21st Daytona Supercross by Honda. When the gate dropped, Team Honda's Jeff Stanton shot to the head of the pack. Behind him, a chain reaction domino effect type crash had taken down at least a dozen or so riders. Among the down riders, series points leader Jean-Michel Bayle. Up front, Stanton was putting on one of those performances years to come. Conditions, unpredictable back markers, or Kawasaki's Jeff Ward lurking in second affected Stanton as he manhandled his Honda around the track. At At the checkers, he stood ceremoniously, posing, savoring, and finally rolling off the jump into history as the first rider to win 3 consecutive Daytona Supercross events. Afterwards, the Michigan rider said he wasn't affected at all with whoever or whatever was going on behind him.
No pressure. It all worked really smooth. Once I got 6 seconds ahead, basically on the first, second lap, it was just ride smooth and consistent from there on out. It feels great. Just another stepping stone to history. 3 in a row here at Daytona. Move it on to win 3 championships this year.
A look at the standings shows Stanton's teammate Jean-Michel Bayle still on top. The Frenchman put in a fantastic come-from-behind ride after that first lap spill, which netted him a 3rd place. The Stanton-Bayle war continues in Tempe, Arizona this weekend. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Chris Larson.
Coming up later on Motoworld, an exclusive interview.
This run very seriously. Others are just looking for photo opportunities. The good guys have the dead engine start down pat.
You got to go!
Here's one of the good guys, Larry Rossler, winner of the season-opening Quicksilver National Enduro. He settled for 2nd AA and 4th overall in the Florida sand. Even though it was dry for this year's run, there were slick spots here and there. Finding one didn't earn you a whole lot of sympathy. In the end, the Canadian National Enduro champ upset the Americans, and even he was surprised.
I didn't really think it was that great until I got back and started hearing other guys' scores, and I guess it's good enough.
The other big surprise in the top 5 was a 4-stroke rider Scott Summers finishing 3rd. Reporting for Motoworld, I'm Mark Phillips.
Sharpless, Hasseltine, and Duhamel making a big week for the Canadians in Daytona. When we come back, Motoworld checks out the preseason action.
Yes to your rights, because if you don't, you won't have a life.
Yo, man, doing drugs is a #1 crime. Keep it up and you will pay some time. If someone offers you some grass, just say no like in their class. We wrote this rap just to show that we know how to just say no. To all you kids, don't be fools. Don't use drugs because they aren't cool. If you ever find yourself in a bad situation, turn to drug abuse resistance education.
All right, now amid the Daytona fun and frolic, we do have this sad note. Rick Johnson, one of the great motocrossers of all time, announced his retirement at Saturday's Supercross. Plagued by complications from a 2-year-old wrist injury, RJ has finally had enough. He told me he wants to pursue his car racing interests. And to mark the end of a magnificent career, we offer you Motoworld's tribute to Rick Johnson.
Rick Johnson is rounding the final corner and headed for the finish line jump. And there it is, the first victory of the 1989 season. Now Johnson dives to the inside. He took a low line. Has Tishner got enough of a drive out of that corner to hold on to second? No! His charge tonight has been almost unbelievable. One more corner and the final finish line jump, and victory is his, and there it is with thumbs in the air. Meanwhile, back to that battle for 3rd, and look, there's the pass. Rick Johnson took Damon Bradshaw to the edge of the track and put his rear wheel in Bradshaw's front wheel and said, son, this is a lesson in passing. Here he comes to the checkered flag, touchdown. Now, whether or not he can hold off the hard-charging Rick Johnson behind him, and there's the answer to that question. Johnson gets a drive on the outside. He gasses it, looks back at Stanton in the air, says goodbye.
You are now the winningest rider in Supercross history. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel unreal. You know, now my goal is just to get that number up as high as possible so none of these young kids come up and take it.
If you've just joined us, Rick Johnson, the defending Supercross champ from out of the pack, has moved all the way up to challenge to the #2 position.
The baddest man on 2 wheels. That'd be one way. I just like people to look at me and just see something in me that they didn't see in
The National Hare and Hound Championship Series visits the Mojave Desert. And coming up next, the muddiest motocross race we've ever seen. Keep it tuned to ESPN. Hangtown Classic was preparing to roll outside Sacramento. The Dirt Diggers Motorcycle Club became the Mud Daubers MC as club members tried valiantly to drain their racetrack. pit crews did their part to reroute the torrents of water, and determined fans stood their ground. But the riders feared the worst.
It's going to be real tough. I don't think it's going to be any different for a guy that's in second place than fourth place. He's going to have a guy in front of him throwing mud and sliding around, so the only guy that's going to have the advantage is the guy up front. Of course, only one guy can be there. And
you know, it's hard to say. It's going to be so muddy and ruddy. It's just a strong man's going to survive, the guy that goes out and rides the smartest.
The fact is, the good guys didn't want to ride at all, but the AMA wouldn't cancel unless absolutely necessary.
If we overreacted and the rain stopped and it cleared up, we're going to feel stupid. If we could have got a single moto in or whatever.
The turning point came as the big stars watched an old-timers exhibition race and realized, hey, if these old guys can handle it, we ought to be able to. And so the muddiest motocross in recent memory began with the 125 class pouring into turn one. Despite the misery and the slop, no more than the usual number of guys got tangled up. Buddy Antonez, who hails from Ontario, California, and may never have seen mud, led most of the race. How Buddy learned to get around so well in these kinds of conditions, one of the weekend's enduring mysteries. But in the end, it was Doug Henry who prevailed. He's a New Englander who has a lot of experience with soggy, sloppy racetracks. His late race pass on Antonez gave Henry his first ever national win. Now, that victory vaulted Doug into second place in the series standings behind defending champ Guy Cooper. Guy finished sixth on Sunday. Now let's move on to the 250cc class. You heard Jeff Stanton a moment ago say the man who rides smart will win. Well, Jean-Michel Bayle was smart enough to come to the line with some very big numbers all over himself. He'd obviously raced in the mud before and wanted to be sure the scorers could identify him. JMB slithered and slipped along in the lead, while most of his championship rivals drowned their engines within the first couple of laps and ended up pushing their machines back to the start-finish line. Meanwhile, another New Englander, John Dowd, Chicopee, Massachusetts, caught Bayle and took the lead, only to crash and fall behind again. He battled back a second time, repassed Bayle, who by now was convinced Dowd was a lapper, and Dowd went on to win his first ever AMA National. Bayle and LaRocco were tops among the factory team riders, and in this case, the standings are also worth a look. The 250cc National Series, just 7 races, 5 remain, and with that lead Bayle has over Stanton, Sunday could be remembered as the day Jean-Michel Bayle wrapped up the national championship. Well, we need to tip our hat 3 times here. Once to the Dirt Diggers for hanging in there at Hangtown on Sunday to give those fans a race, and once each to our first-time winners, Doug Henry and John Dowd. Smith was one of the most successful motorcycle racers of the 80s. In the California desert last weekend, the race to crown his successor was on. Seems Dan has traded his handlebars for a steering wheel.
Well, I've switched from racing motorcycles to racing off-road race trucks. I got a deal, and my new sponsor is Ford Trucks.
Here's a look at Dan in his heyday, en route to a remarkable 5 consecutive Hare and Hound championships. Though he went out on top, he misses the action.
I'd love to be out there with him, to be honest, but, you know, it's a conflict with the other deal, and you know, that part of my life is over now, and I still enjoy coming out here and rooting on all my buddies.
Following Dan's retirement, somebody else will take home the trophy from this race, held very close to the middle of nowhere. Among those out to succeed Smith is his longtime friend Larry Rossler, considered the senior citizen of desert racing.
I'm proud of that, but at the same time, for these young riders, you know, it gives them something to go for. I still been beating them pretty regularly, so it's you know, it's still fun for me. It's very challenging. You know, I work out and ride and practice harder now than I've ever. So I figure a couple more years, you know, then I'll just retire, maybe jump in a truck like Dan Smith.
As Rossler and a few hundred of his close friends go to the line, it's worth noting that this is the 38th annual Check Chase, organized by the legendary Checkers Motorcycle Club. It's a dead-engine start. And if yours takes more than one kick like this guy, you're stuck in the dust. As you can see in the view from this staging area, there is a lot of dust as these rugged adventurers begin their 120-mile journey across the arid Mojave Desert. Carrying on in Dan Smith's absence is number 4 Danny Hamill, Smith's KTM teammate from a year ago. Hamill found himself in a seesaw battle with Rossler for the lead. The few spectators, including this future desert racer, are mostly friends and family of the competitors. I'm thinking these guys will be the future stars of the sport once they're old enough to have front teeth and their own motorcycles. Ted Honeycutt chased the leaders despite sinus problems that cut his wind. The good news is it didn't hurt his concentration, and he was able to dodge that wandering pickup truck. At the finish line, the sound of an approaching engine. And have a look at where they put that finish line. Beat your brains out across 120 miles of desert, and then you have to navigate a rock pile to get to the checkered flag. The guy who got there first was Danny Hamill.
I just tried to ride smart all day. I knew it was going to be a long, tough race. I just tried to save my equipment all day long. My bike's working really good. Worked really close with KTM, and they get me all set up, and my bikes just are excellent. I couldn't ask for anything more there.
Now watch what happens behind Dan as he listens to the next question. Well, that was Paul Krause, who rudely interrupted Hamill's winter interview with his fourth-place finish. And by the way, Danny won that race on his birthday. Now, let's take a quick. National hill climb champ Earl Bowlby has decided to go out on top. 57-year-old Ohioan began his climbing career in 1965, rode primarily BSAs. Camel Pro motorcycle racing will be featured here on ESPN in the next few months. The AMA has announced that 10 Grand National dirt track races will be taped to air through. A series resumes this weekend in Tampa, Florida. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here wondering what happened to last year's front page story. Remember all that talk about the changing of the guard? Remember how the rookies like teenage Damon Bradshaw wrote all the early season headlines last year? Remember how the kid whooped up on the reigning champion Jeff Stanton in front of Bradshaw's home crowd in Charlotte, North Carolina? Damon was supposed to be the leading edge of that wave of the future in Supercross competition. But then the kid crashed and broke his ankle. His championship jets were cooled and have yet to be reignited. At the crest of that wave of the future rode two more rookies, number 20 Jeff Matasevich, number 17 Larry Ward. Heard anything from either of them lately? Ward showed signs of future greatness by winning for the home fans in the Seattle Kingdome. Matasevich was actually a challenger for the championship until the last couple of races, but Larry has been hurt and Matasevich hasn't been keeping up. The current standings show last year's champ Stanton and challenger Jean-Michel Bayle in reverse positions this year and battling for every point. Bradshaw has come back impressively. He won the Atlanta Supercross, but he remains far behind in the standings and raised a lot of eyebrows when he described Stanton as a man with no talent. So the story of Supercross 91 has been that the guard didn't get changed after all. Number 1 Stanton, seeking his third straight crown, jumped out front early, then became the only man ever to win 3 straight Daytona Supercrosses. He's been the man to beat, but he's also found the man who could do that. In the last series race, Bayle caught Stanton from behind, won, and took the point lead. But Jeff insists he's not worried.
He's definitely got more talent than anybody that's ever came out of Europe. He's doing a great job, but he's got a long ways to go to win a championship. He can win races, but it's tough to win that championship.
All right, we go now to a guy who has a rather strong opinion on those young lions of Supercross. That is Rick Johnson. Last month, he announced his retirement due to lingering effects of a 1989 wrist injury. In an exclusive Motoworld interview, RJ pulled no punches on the subject of Jeff Matasevich and Larry Ward. He says they're overrated.
There are 2 riders that have won 1 race. They've been good. They've been consistent. They've been right up top. But, you know, winning race after race like Jean-Michel Bayle and Jeff Ward and Jeff Stanton and Damon Bradshaw have done, you know, they've proved that they can win week after week, and that's what it takes to be number 1. To go out and win 1 race in your hometown when you're all jacked up isn't what makes you a champion. And who I feel is probably the most underrated rider is Jeff Stanton. Catches a lot of flack, but he's done everything right.
Well, Ricky had some eating when a bad crash left him with a broken wrist. He has since struggled without success to make a comeback. Last month at Daytona, he called it quits. We talked to RJ this week, asked him about his fondest racetrack memory.
Well, it would have to be in 1987 when I got knocked down in the first turn with a batch of other riders and came from 18th place back to first place. It was probably my most exciting win, and one that I had the crowd behind me the whole time. I lost the championship that year, but I did win the race that night, and I went out feeling like a king, so that had to be my fondest memory on the track.
Asked about his toughest race, Ricky also recalled the man he considered his toughest competitor.
1986 at Anaheim Stadium, when David Bailey and I passed each other numerous times, and we were racing back and forth, and I was so physically tired at the end of the race, he pulled away from me, and it was mentally and physically brutal on me because I got beat in both ways. But he had a different style than me, and that's what frustrated me. When I wanted to be a caveman and just hold it on wide open and go through the biggest bumps, he had a smooth rhythm of doing things, and he did things probably the right way, and I did them with force. And sometimes it worked to my advantage, sometimes it worked to his advantage, but he was so smart and so physically strong that he was, I consider, my toughest opponent.
In years to come, RJ's opponents will race on four wheels.
Well, my plans have been for a couple years now to move into automotive racing, and I've been talking with some different car manufacturers, and I'm going to be doing some testing for some people on June 1st in the stadium trucks, and that's going to determine if I have the right stuff to move into automotive racing or not. So my short-term goals are to get as much seat time as I possibly can. I'm going to be doing some driving schools in the next month, and also I'm going to be driving lots of go-karts. So my desires are now to get into automotive racing. I want to be known for what I'm doing, not for what I did, and the motocross racing is behind me now. I loved it, I had a great time, but I can't do it the way I want to, so there's no sense in just hanging around and living off my past championships.
Though he's not living in the past, RJ does savor fond memories.
When I was young and racing, my dad said to me one time, and I'll never forget it, it'd be great if you made some money in racing, enough to buy a new truck and start your own construction business. And really, that's what all I ever thought I would do in it. I never did it for the money or for the glory. I did it because I loved it, and I just the best time I could ever think of having was just going out and riding my motorcycle day after day, and it paid off for me.
And for those who believe the shortest answers are sweetest, what kept Rick Johnson motivated?
I hated to lose, and that's what made me want to win so bad.
He's been a great champion. His career heads in a new direction now, and Rick Johnson left us with this parting thought.
I had a great time. I had a blast. I never thought I would be on TV telling people my beliefs and my thoughts and thanking them, but here I am, and it's been a great time. Thanks a lot. God bless, and bye.
Fast Cat coming. We'll be back in a moment with one final note from the Supercross scene. Stay with us. Hawkins, sidelined with a broken thumb, returns to action next week in Ohio, while his teammate Kevin Hines will sit out with a hip injury. And road racer Randy Renfro will undergo major reconstructive surgery on his injured hand in a couple of weeks at UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. And with that, we are fresh out of time.
Cooper. Mike Kudrowski was running third, and way back in the pack, boy, I guess about 100 points down was Jeff Matasevich. He was in fourth at the start of the moto. Now, none of the contenders were out front when the moto got underway. Bale was close. Cooper, though, was quite a ways back.
I was in third place, number 17. John Michelle was in second, number 22. And Denny Stevenson, number 27, got the whole shot and was out front.
And what was going on? Because all of a sudden, Stevenson was back a ways, and you and Bale had started to leave the field.
Right, Denny's been riding injured, and John Michelle and I both got by him real fast. And John Michelle was riding real well. He had a 4 or 5 second lead going in about the 5th or 6th lap.
He did. Now, another rider on the charge, Mike LaRocco, another one of your teammates. Guy Cooper was moving up. And I think at that point, though, that Cooper never would have caught Bale. He was really flying. But all of a sudden, Bale was down on the ground, and it was costly. He tried to get up, picked up his motorcycle, dropped it again. He was obviously in pain, couldn't ride. What kind of a section was that?
It was a really tough section. They were a little smaller than jumps, but a little bigger than whoop-de-doos. And John Michelle just got a little ahead of himself and endoed into the third one. And I guess he's hurt pretty bad.
I guess he was. He wasn't able to finish that moto. Guy Cooper put on an incredible charge toward the end. He went by you. You were in the lead at that time. Went by you and went on to take the win and the points lead. So Suzuki sweep in moto number 1. We had Cooper out front. You were second, Mike LaRocco third. I'd say you guys helped your teammate.
Yeah, I'd say we definitely got the job done.
You did. You all rode very, very well. Now let's go back to Washougal and see how the Suzuki wrecking crew did in moto number 2. Now, when the starting gate was dropped in that moto, Jean-Michel Bale was not on the line. Instead, Larry, Bale was being transported to the hospital for x-rays. And the end result, according to DeCoster, who works for Honda, a broken forearm. And that's probably going to sideline a Honda star for the rest of the season. But meanwhile, you, your teammate Mike LaRocco, you guys were out front and having a ball.
Yeah, it was a good day for all of us. We were riding real well, and Cooper came up from behind and went on to win the moto.
Came up from behind, indeed. He was off the pace just like in moto number 1. The guy was really flying. He caught Matasevic, went around him, caught you, and no offense, Larry, but went by you like, geez, you were almost standing still.
Yeah, Guy, he has a lot to race for. With Jean-Michel being out, he's in the lead in the championship now, and he was a pretty happy man that day.
Well, I'll bet he was. And, you know, probably he was so happy because it was kind of unexpected. If we take a look at that last lap, Mike LaRocco was way out front. I didn't see any way that Cooper could possibly catch him. What happened?
Well, Mike, I guess he was a little tired towards the end of the moto, and the top part of the track is really rough, and he said he swapped out a little bit and almost crashed, and Cooper caught up behind him, and then he was a little nervous, and Cooper got by him on the last lap.
Poor Mike LaRocco. That's the kind of season that he's had. But anyhow, for Suzuki, it's a banner day. Cooper, with both moto wins, took overall honors. Mike LaRocco finishing second overall, and Larry, you completed the Suzuki sweep with third overall. Points in the 125 class look like this. It's Cooper's championship to win.
As long as he doesn't have any problems like Jean-Michel encountered, I think he'll go on to win the championship.
Supercross champion Jeff Stanton, the Pontiac Silverdome doubleheader in his home state of Michigan. Now, Stanton's teammate, Jean-Michel Bale, JMB, has led that series for weeks. Jeff went home to Pontiac to knock him off his perch.
Before the race, former world champion Bale insisted he's not concentrating on this, the most prestigious crown in American motocross.
I didn't try to think about the championship. I just tried to win every race and try to ride my best every time. So I never look about the points in the championship. I just try to make every race, you know, as fast as I can and try to win every race.
Stanton was thinking about the championship, and he had a clear idea who was going to win it.
I'm going to say I'm going to win the championship, of course. And reasoning why is consistency. I've been consistent all my life. JMB has never won a championship here in the States. Not saying that he's not gonna. You know, he could this year, but as long as I'm here and 100% healthy, he's not going to.
On the right side of your screen, number 1 Stanton definitely not healthy after he was pitched over the bars in his Saturday night heat race. In replay, you see that he may have tangled with Ty Davis, losing his momentum, nosing into the backside of the whoop and going over the bars. That impact separated the champ's left shoulder. He attempted to get back into the race, but the pain was just too much, and he pulled back into the pits. His title hopes devastated. With Stanton out of commission, 4th-ranked Damon Bradshaw took the lead, while Bale battled Jeff Matasevic for second. This is the best Jeff's run all year, and anytime Bradshaw bobbled, the Mataz attack was right there and ready to pounce. Now watch Bradshaw up there in the dark. Major bobble as he washed out the front wheel and handed the lead to his 1990 rival Matasevic, and promptly came under heavy attack from JMB. Matasevic started throwing blocks, trying to keep the Frenchman behind him. But little did Jeff know that a more serious problem loomed just beyond the horizon. For no apparent reason, Matasevic noses over off the lip of a double jump and has to bail out big time. Watch his feet in this slow-mo from another angle. A nasty impact that left him with a bruised heel. He sat out the race on Sunday. So up front, Bale was left all alone with his championship thoughts, while Mike LaRocco's Suzuki carried him from deep in the pack to an impressive second, and Mike Kudrowski took third. These two are real tired of being close and will surely win one of these days. Bale scored a monster victory Saturday night in Stanton's absence. That's his 6th win of the season. The big question, how many more can he pile up before Stanton is back to full speed?
Well, if Stanton has his way, he'll return to action this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yes, that would be remarkable. Normal recovery from that injury, 6 to 8 weeks. But 24-hour-a-day treatment by sports doctor Jeff Spencer has given Stanton an outside shot at Charlotte. It will be an 11th-hour decision, but Jeff's determined not to miss any more races.
And with that, we move to the Sunday action. Damon Bradshaw went into this weekend determined to win and get back in the points chase.
Yeah, it would definitely help points and also help, me getting motivated for Charlotte next weekend. But I'm already thinking about Charlotte and getting ready for it. So, these 2 nights would definitely help. Even one night. I just want some good finishes.
Charlotte, of course, is Damon's hometown. He won the first Supercross there a year ago this weekend. And last Sunday at Pontiac, he waltzed away from Jean-Michel Bale, while number 6, LaRocco, impressed us once more with his potential for victory. He survived this all-Suzuki battle with Ron Tishner. That rounded out the best weekend of the year thus far for the Yellow Bikes. Up front, Bradshaw styled to his 2nd win of the year. He has great momentum for Charlotte this weekend, and Bale is really in the driver's seat.
And we go now to the Honda scoreboard for Sunday's results and, more importantly, last weekend's impact on those Camel Supercross standings. Here's your Sunday top 5. I can't help but wonder if Bale wasn't content in Stanton's absence to run 2nd. He now has a 57-point lead with 7 races left. He can finish an average of 4th from here on and clinch the title. Now, an upset. Canadian Blair Sharpless beating the national stars of the AMA Enduro Series. We're going to have that story in our next segment. Well, one final thought on the Jeff Stanton situation. I think Jeff is the most determined guy out there, and he'll certainly make an heroic comeback. But it's going to take an injury to Bale now for Jeff to have any shot at that title, and Jean-Michel is clearly in the position where he doesn't have to take any chances.
Still ahead, the 125cc action at Pontiac was nearly as dramatic as the 250 show. Bob Barsha will have the somewhat sloppy highlights of that national enduro in Ohio. And coming up,
Southeastern Ohio forced a change of course for round 3 of the AMA National Enduro Series and a change in strategy for local favorite Jeff Russell.
Just try to pick good, smart lines and hang in there and make it to the finish line. Try not to dive into any big mud holes or something and spend half the day there. So should be a fun race.
Russell came into the Little Raccoon trying to hang on to his lead in the national points for the KTM factory, while over at Team Suzuki, 2-time defending national champ Randy Hawkins hoped to rebound from a broken thumb that sidelined him for the first 2 events of the season. Enduro riding is motorcycling's answer to the 4-wheeled sport of rallying. The goal is to maintain a predetermined pace, 24 miles per hour at Little Raccoon, while navigating over unfamiliar terrain, in this case 125 miles of mostly rugged trails. Time lost along the way must be made up without going too fast. Each rider's progress is measured at a series of checkpoints. Early arrivals are penalized 2 points for the first minute and 5 points per minute thereafter. Late riders are docked a flat point per minute. This year's Little Raccoon course was one of the toughest ever, thanks to all the water, which you could either take head-on or try to outflank. As points leader Russell mentioned, the secret is in finding the right line. And this one ain't it. In the end, Russell came home muddy, tired, and beaten, along with all the rest of the top-ranked riders, as Canadian Blair Sharpless followed his big win in the Alligator Enduro at Daytona last month by taking the coonskin cap symbolic of Little Raccoon victory, his first career AMA national win. Russell finished 2nd to remain the overall series points leader, while Randy Hawkins limped home 16th.
Supercross action now with the 125 class at the Pontiac Silverdome. Teammates Brian Swink and Jeremy Buell are 1-2 in the standings, and for the story of their championship battle, we go to Mark Phillips.
A treacherous first turn had the crowd on its feet Saturday night at the Pontiac Silverdome. Watch the right of your screen as a big first turn boondoggle bottles up most of the field, allowing the first 10 riders to break away, led by 31 Doug Henry and the 42 of runaway points leader and local favorite Brian Swink. Yamaha-mounted Henry took the early lead, needing a win to keep Swink, who has 2 already, in sight for the championship. But just a handful of laps in, Swink was at Henry's elbow, looking for his 3rd win in 6 races. Swink jammed his Honda under Henry into the uphill grandstand hairpin and passed for a lead he would not give up, giving the home fans just what they came for. 3rd place was decided between Talon Volan and Cliff Palmer. Watch as number 19 Volan out-accelerates Palmer to take the position. Up front, Swink was untouchable en route to completing the hat trick of 1991 wins. The victory gave Swink a 31-point lead over Henry, Voland, and Jeremy Buell heading into the second half of the Silverdome doubleheader on Sunday.
Well, Swink was justifiably proud of his third win of the year, but remember, pride goeth before a fall, and in this case, that axiom proved to be literally true. Once again, here's Mark.
Sunday night at the Silverdome, the Swink Swarm was back out in force, hoping to lift their man, Brian Swink, a native of Felton, Michigan, to a two-night sweep on home turf. Those hopes were dashed at the first corner, however. On the run down to the tight first turn, Swink tried to sneak up the inside and hooked the hay bales and went down right in front of the main body of riders. Somehow, nobody ran over him, and Swink managed to remount and refire. A couple of angles in slow motion show how the points leader tried to force the issue along the rail, only to find himself in harm's way big time. In a tight championship race, this kind of mistake could have spelled disaster. Back on two wheels and unhurt, Swink treated his fans to a charge that carried him all the way to 7th at the flag. Up front, 483 Mike Brown and 25 Jeremy Buell fought for the lead until Buell cut an apex too finely and went down, allowing Talon Volan and Brian Hughes through into 2nd and 3rd. That was just the beginning. A couple of laps later, Hughes caught leader Brown. They went nose to tail, each looking for his first victory of the season. Heading up into the grandstand hairpin, Hughes tried for the inside line, crashed hard and took Brown down with him. That allowed Volan and Buell to squeeze around and continue their duel, now elevated into a battle for the lead.
6 hours, but you know, I have a lot of fun, I have a lot of good times, and I just really enjoy the sport.
Was it just a coincidence that you happened to go to enduro first instead of some other kind of a race?
Well, not really. You know, I had a really good friend, Dale Stegall. He took me to my first race with an enduro, and I really enjoyed it.
Sponsorship. And we'll begin with last Saturday night's action in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's Mark Phillips.
Jeremy Buell came into round 8 of the 125 campaign, trailing Honda teammate Brian Swink by 20 championship points. Buell held the early lead in Charlotte until Carolina native Ryan Hughes came sailing by in his Kawasaki, taking a triple jump in one leap and bringing the home fans to their feet by blazing into the lead. The spectacular pass proved to be a wake-up call for Buell, however. He pulled himself together and set out after Hughes. Behind those two, overall series leader Swink found himself in 4th, trailing another local favorite, Hank Moree. They dueled until Moree cut a quarter too finely, launched over a jump, and crashed hard. Moree was unhurt and soon was back on his feet, but Swink was gone in 3rd. Up front, the lead battle took on a new desperation when the clouds overhead opened and the traction disappeared. First, Hughes skidded into a corner, but recovered before Buell could capitalize. Despite rain falling harder and harder by the second, Hughes couldn't or wouldn't back off, and you just knew something bad was going to happen. Moments later, it did. Slipping and sliding from jump to jump, Hughes tried to take a double jump a little too fast, lost his grip and did a rare feet-first dismount en route to an unhappy landing. In slow motion, you can see that Hughes got sideways in midair, realized he was going to come up short on the jump, and eventually finished in 11th place. Buell managed to hang on despite the conditions to score his 3rd win of the season, tying teammate Swink, who came home 2nd. The finish marks the 3rd time this year Buell and Swink have swept the top 2 positions. That leaves the Honda pair just 17 points apart for the 125 championship with 3 races remaining. Reporting for Motoworld, I'm Mark Phillips.
All right, Mark, now let's get to the story of the team behind the riders. Swink and Buell ride for a brand new outfit that seems determined to do things right. Bob Varsha tells us more about them.
Brian Swink and Jeremy Buell represent the new blood in motocross in more ways than one. By dominating the AMA Eastern 125 Supercross, Swink and Buell have focused the spotlight on their team and its unusual sponsor, Peak Antifreeze.
I think it's because we're the first team to bring in an outside sponsor into the sport, which is really good. You know, NASCAR, it's kind of basically made them, and we can't take nothing away from the riders. You know, the riders have won, I think, up to date about 6 out of 8 of the Supercross events, which, you know, it says a lot for them. It says a lot for their equipment and the mechanics and all the people in the organization.
Last August, Mitch Payton was approached by American Honda about fielding a 125 team if sponsorship could be found. An armload of proposals and an earful of phone calls later, Payton had a deal with Peak and a renewed appreciation of what it takes to land a racing sponsor.
You just got to be persistent and try to follow up, you know, on everything you do, and everything has to be professional. And you have to realize they're not going to do this for the racing. You know, they're going to do this as a promotion more than anything, and it means business, and you've got to perform for that money, you know, and it doesn't mean racing. It means giving them, you know, tons of handouts. We do open houses. We go to dealerships. We're here at the races. We talk to the kids. You know, that's what they want.
The Peak team is thoroughly professional, and they get results, both of which are equally important in Peyton's plan.
We'll lose some money this year, obviously running the program the way we're doing it. But I think if we do it, and we do it in a professional and a positive manner, that other outside companies will look at our sport and say, you know, that's a real good opportunity. We should do that. You know, we have a lot of attendance. Our demographics are real young, active people. And I think other people will look at this, you know, and hopefully they'll, you know, copy it and, you know, bring some more people into our sport.
For Motoworld, this is Bob Varsha reporting.
All right, thank you, Bob. Still ahead, the future stars of American motocross get a workout in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the most familiar Supercross name of all, Jean-Michel Bayle, JMB, tops the results from last Saturday night in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, you'll recall that the previous weekend, the Camel Supercross race at the Pontiac Silverdome turned into a disaster for the hometown hero, Jeff Stanton. He crashed, separated his shoulder, fell far behind series leader Bayle in the standings. Well, last weekend in Charlotte, the hometown boy was once again the story. For a while, Art Ekman reports.
Charlotte area Supercross fans love number 11, Damon Bradshaw, when their favorite son grabbed the early lead over Jean-Michel Bayle Saturday night in the midst of a pouring rain. Those fans went crazy. Then the uproar reached a fever pitch as number 5, Guy Cooper, stepped in to take his shot at the local hero. Cooper's never won a Supercross, and for a while it looked like this might be the one. But Bradshaw, inspired by the roar of the crowd and ignoring the pain of an injured thumb, came battling back. This was a classic Supercross confrontation, the kind of battle we expect from Bayle and Stanton. But in Jeff's absence, JMB seemed content to keep it on 2 wheels and pile up points. Suddenly, the picture changed dramatically as Bradshaw became a victim of the rapidly deteriorating track conditions. His fan club was brokenhearted. He finished 11th. The savvy Bayle, former 250cc world champion, inherited second and left the cruise control right where it was. He fell into first place a few moments later when Cooper fell out of it, the victim of the slippery slop. Cooper's miscue was minor. He just lost the rear wheel as he flung it up on the muddy berm and went on his head. Now, don't be confused by these pictures. This is Cooper crashing again, this time with Damon Bradshaw. Thus did Guy and Damon both wind up out of contention. Thus did Jean-Michel Bayle score his 7th win of the 91 Supercross season. Like it or not, a Frenchman is going to be the champion of America's richest and most prestigious motocross series. Bayle's Charlotte victory pads his point lead to 79 over Saturday's 12th place finisher, Mike Kudrowski, and 82 over Jeff Stanton.
This week on Motoworld, a rough night of Supercross racing and another Bayle win on the Florida Sun Coast. The AMA Camel Pro Series goes west for one of the best Sacramento miles in years. And a test of balance and patience in the Mojave Desert. We'll have the Observed Trials, season opener, and a whole lot more next on Motoworld.
I think it's my turn to have some good luck, you know. Everybody's accompanied some bad luck, and it should be time for those. You know, I don't wish bad luck on anybody, but, you know, it's my time to start winning.
But Damon's optimism was premature. As he and Jeff Ward chased heat race leader Jeff Stanton, Bradshaw tried a move that earned him a high side crash and a trip to the semifinal, which he won. Bradshaw's crash-itis is contagious. Look at his teammate, Doug Dubach, in the first race back after a long injury layoff. Now, this is one of those slow-mos, almost too painful to watch, almost, but not quite. Semi. And wouldn't you know it, the guy in front of him single jumps when everybody else is doubling, and Dubach lands on top of him. Another painful crash. This time he's done for the night. And who can blame the doctor for wanting to vent his frustrations on something? Welcome back, Doug Dubach. Onward to the main event and a hole shot for number 11 Bradshaw that looked like it could lead to that long-sought second victory of the season. Behind him, the battle of the series championship rivals, Jean-Michel Bayle, number 8, passing the reigning number 1 Jeff Stanton for second, but they do some serious air work. Then Bale moved up to pressure Bradshaw, who suddenly found himself trapped. There's a fallen rider right in front of him. Damon used his motorcycle for traction, but Bale needed no more invitation than that to take away the lead. Jean-Michel pulled away, leaving a Stanton-Bradshaw battle for the runner-up spot, a battle which ended rather abruptly when Damon's bike sputtered off the lip of a whoop. The rear wheel came up and all but launched him out of the Suncoast Dome. Here's another look at that unusual incident. Damon wanted power. Instead, it bogged. The front end nosed over. The rear came up, and the engine wouldn't run anymore. Meanwhile, Bale kept up the pace and left Stanton far behind, claiming his 5th win of the year as that series moves toward its conclusion. On the last lap, Mike Kudrowski made a do-or-die run at Stanton. Jeff takes second. Mike picked himself up for third. Bale can't get the champagne open, and Kudrowski looks pretty happy for a guy who just crashed. As you look at the results, there's one reason Mike's so pleased. That third-place finish vaults him into third in the standings, while Bradshaw's plunge drops him to 5th. And every day, Stanton's title defense gets a little more difficult. Well, Stanton had 3 major goals this year: to win his 3rd Daytona, which he did, to win his hometown Supercross in Pontiac, Michigan. He'll try to do that this weekend. And number 3, win another Supercross championship. Bale is clearly going to make Jeff work to complete that ambitious. Is about the most foreboding of the year, the rocky outcroppings of the Mojave Desert. Mark Manico's a former winner here.
Well, the terrain is really unique because it has so much traction. Most of the places in the United States don't have this much traction. So the sections here tend to be a lot more radical and scary than they are elsewhere in the country.
Ryan Young, owner of 3 straight championships, thinks winning is a head game.
We never saw the section before in our lives, so we do have to park our bikes and walk it thoroughly, frontwards, backwards, looking for all kinds of lines until we figure the best line. And then you have to decide whether you want to be the first one to ride the section or not. So then there's a waiting game. You don't want to show your competitors your line that you think's the best. So it becomes a waiting game, and finally you have to ride. And you try to be as relaxed as you can, but the nerves are so up there that the first 3 sections are pretty difficult until you get relaxed.
Well, Ryan was relaxed and in top form, demonstrating the acrobatics and balance that make trials riding one of the most fascinating forms of motorcycle sport. On the other hand, Manico had met his match.
It's me against the rocks, and if I'm having a good day, I beat all the rocks. If I'm not having such a good day, then the rocks tend to get me. It's just me and the rocks.
One of the concerns about modern-day trials is that increased rider and machine capability means sections have to be more dangerous to be challenging. Young's day came to a bad end on this steep rock face. He took a maximum 5 points. That cost him the hope of a victory. And so his teenage teammate, Jeff Aaron, rose to the occasion. 3rd ranked last year, growing in skill and experience almost as fast as in height. He's now 6'4" and climbing. This kid is one of the stars of the future in the fascinating sport of trials. To Florida now for more Supercross action. The 125 race in St. Petersburg was a real dogfight, and Chris Larson is here to tell us who won.
An upset was in the making as the heroes of the Supercross support class launched themselves into Turn 1 at the Suncoast Dome. None of the frontrunners had ever won a Supercross, and number 483, Mike Brown, seemed determined to do just that. In fact, he threatened to make it a runaway. More exciting for the fans was this battle for second between number 46, Eric McClear of Romeo, Michigan, and number 36, Grayson Goodman of Plano, Texas. That tussle got downright serious as Goodman grabbed the runner-up spot, and since no one told him that leader Brown was invincible, he proceeded to run him down, pass him in the air and on the outside, and take over the lead. To further discomfort the fading Brown, number 25, Jeremy Buell, immediately jumped on him as well. Piloting the Peak antifreeze-sponsored Honda, the London, Ohio Charger kept the pressure on until he finally found a place to pass and took over the runner-up spot. Now we'll slow this down to give you a good look. Once Buell had momentum and he had figured out this high bank switchback, he was able to go all the way to the lead with a picture book block pass on Goodman. Meanwhile, series leader Brian Swink was recovering from a bad start and heading to the front. Watch this pass on Talon Volan. And here's Volan's retaliation that just about left him standing on his head. With a great come-from-behind ride, Swink worked all the way back to third. And here's Jeremy Buell styling to his very first career Supercross win and thoroughly enjoying the champagne that goes with it. However, Swink maintains a healthy point lead. Reporting for Motoworld, I'm Chris Larson.
Thank you, Chris. Perhaps the biggest surprise of the 91 Supercross season has been the performance of Mike Fisher. He's gone from Mike Who to frequent frontrunner, and Art Ekman tells us the reason why.
For the first time in a long time, there's a European motorcycle to be reckoned with in American motocross. The brand is KTM, and the team rider Mike Fisher says the team's for real.
I think they're trying to move into Supercross a little bit because there is a big market there, and they seem, I mean, with the effort that they're putting in, it's incredible really how they're doing it, and it's really good, and I think nobody really expected these good results, but you know, we're all pumped and ready to go for higher results even now.
That's a major pump for Fisher, who spent last year on a Kawasaki support bike, often testing components for the real factory riders. By every measure, his KTM deal is a full-fledged factory ride, but even he is surprised at the results.
I don't know what I expected. I felt real good in practice all until the first Supercross, and I knew I was riding real fast, but I didn't really know exactly how fast. You know, I mean, everybody's improving every year, and I just found a little niche that I got into, and now I feel really good. I don't know. I think it's just a lot of confidence I have in the bike. I feel really, really comfortable on it. I think, you know, I mean, I don't think there's any, I don't think it's all the bike. I think the bike is good, but I think I'm feeling really confident on it, and that's the biggest thing.
In the Outdoor Nationals, other riders occasionally use Mike's KTM for traction. But with this week's return to the Supercross Wars in Tampa Stadium, Fisher sees himself as a potential winner.
I think it's possible, yeah. I think I'm looking for top 3 finishes right now. Hopefully I'll win one after that, but I think top 3 is my goal.
For Motoworld, I'm Art Ekman.
All right, thank you, Art, and continued good luck to Mike. And a special hello to American Scooter Racing Association. He's pitted right next to the potent Vespa Super Shop team from San Diego. Now, if you've never seen it before, prepare to be impressed with scooter racing. Kenny Roberts, eat your heart out. Check out the drafting and the fierce competition on the brakes. How about that knee-out style and the quick flick to change directions? And the acceleration is awesome. Almost. Number 1 is Matt Dawson.
Basically, I like it because it's different. Not a lot of people doing it. It's fun, and since the things were made basically back in the 60s, they were designed, the technology is pretty much lower, but that's what's fun because you have to modify them a lot and do it all yourself. So it's not like just going down to the store and buying some stuff and bolting it on. You know, you got to think about it, you got to figure some stuff out, do the tuning yourself, and that's another thing that attracts me to it, you know.
Riding styles vary as the week. We're going to begin with Bale and the story of the Frenchman who would be champion of the Camel Supercross Series. Of all the stars of American motocross, Yamaha's Damon Bradshaw is the only guy left with a chance to keep the Camel Supercross title in U.S. hands. European superstar, twice world champion, Jean-Michel Bale went to New Jersey last weekend hoping to eliminate Bradshaw as well, and knowing the only thing standing between him and the title is a possible crash and injury. So what do you suppose happened in the heat race? Bale crashed while battling Mike LaRocco for position. Not the kind of tip over that's likely to hurt you, but things like that are hard to predict. And why take a chance with a 73-point lead? And so when the gate dropped for the 250 main, Bale was left in the ruck after riding the semi for the first time I can remember. Jeff Ward, number 3, jumped out to an early lead ahead of the defending number 1 Camel Supercross champ, Jeff Stanton. But Stanton quickly shot past Ward and took over the advantage. Meanwhile, number 11, Damon Bradshaw, trying to keep his own championship hopes alive, throttled his way past Kawasaki's Ward for second spot and set his sights on Stanton up front. And while Bradshaw seemed to be doing everything right, Bale was either struggling or maybe just accepting the fact that wisdom is the better part of valor. He took no more chances and wound up a distant 4th. Up front, Stanton and Bradshaw having a great battle of their own, not worrying about the championship and giving the fans a night to remember. Dog eat dog right to the end, neither guy giving an inch. Stanton, whose chances of becoming a 3-time Supercross champion were ruined by a shoulder injury earlier in the season, has made a remarkable recovery, and he was inspired by the chance to whip his arch-rival Bradshaw. But Jeff couldn't shake Damon off. In fact, Bradshaw took the lead and managed to maintain it for several laps at mid-race. And then comes a typical display of Stanton determination. Watch him kick in the rocket booster over a series of whoop-de-doos. Once he's got position, he whips to the inside on the next turn, takes a lead, and never surrenders it. That locked down first and second place, and it also left the Las Vegas Supercross winner Mike LaRocco to work his way through the pack to an eventual third. Fourth place Bale never moved up to challenge, perhaps remembering their heat race crash. As Stanton launched his uninjured arm in victory, he reminded the New Jersey crowd that he'd like to have made it a race for the championship. And while Jeff was first to the champagne cork, Bradshaw's runner-up finish postponed the inevitable for the Americans. He managed to prevent Bale from making it official and claiming that Supercross crown. All right, now to figure out what Bale has to do to finally wrap up that title, let's go to the Honda scoreboard. With a 73-point lead, JMB needs just 2 points in the remaining 3 races to be champion. The clinch will surely come in Oklahoma City on June the 8th. Stanton mathematically eliminated despite his win. He will battle Bradshaw for second. In World Road Racing, Mick Doohan won the 500cc Italian GP passing. Moving right along, the East Coast 125 Supercrossers had their last opportunity to shine for the home fans last weekend. The action in New Jersey. Mark Phillips has the report.
Coming into Giant Stadium in New Jersey, number 25 Jeremy Buell was looking to upset number 42 Brian Swink, who has dominated all year. As the 20-rider field worked their way into the first turn, it was number 98 Jason Langford grabbing the whole shot with Brian Swink in tow. Langford's inexperience out front showed as he crashed over this double jump, giving the lead away to Swink and causing a whole lot of trouble for Buell. Let's take another look. Notice number 98 Langford casing his motorcycle on this double jump, causing him to lose control of the front wheel. Buell didn't have too much to say in this one, but that's okay with him. He might weeble and wobble, but he doesn't fall down. While this mess is cleared, there's a good battle at hand between number 483 Mike Brown and number 65 Cliff Palmer. Brown eventually passes Palmer and secures second place. Up front, Brian Swink was all alone, pleasing the crowd at Giant Stadium with an incredible aerial show. Swink gave new meaning to the term reaching new heights. Meanwhile, Jeremy Buell hadn't given up the fight. He recovered from his earlier pileup and found himself in the heat of battle again. But with some mechanical problems, 12th place was the best Jeremy Buell could do. Yamaha-mounted Doug Henry, number 31, fought his way to a hard-earned third-place finish, moving him up to third in the point standings behind Buell. Brian Swink maintains his comfortable lead and moves one step closer to winning the 125cc Eastern Region Supercross Championship. Reporting for Motoworld
in Maryland, the night after the Supercross attracted several big names, including Ron Lechien on the comeback trail from injury and from a couple of unfortunate brushes with the law.
Well, I have been off for a while. I broke my leg in October of '89, and since then I've had some ups and downs. I've gotten in trouble with the law, and I've been trying to keep myself clean and stay out of jail. And it's been an experience for sure. But I'm glad to get back to the races where I grew up, and you know, see some of my old friends and talk to the people that I really like.
Lechien, number 4, grabbed the whole shot in the second 500 moto, looking like the Kawasaki star we all used to know. That is, until Ronnie Tishner moved in. In fact, Lechien started to tire in mid-moto, and that gave the lead to Tishner on Suzuki number 12, the last anybody saw of him. The first moto winner, Doug Dubach, chased Tishner, couldn't catch him. Each of them had a first and second place finish on the day. Tishner takes the overall with the second moto victory. But Dubach wasn't finished in the first 125 moto. He powered his Yamaha past Tishner, pulled away to an easy win. Now, we all know that motocrossers are well-conditioned athletes. Neither Dubach nor the hard-charging Tishner showed any sign of fatigue after racing the night before at the Supercross in New Jersey. Here's the first moto checker for Dubach, but the second moto was another story. Watch Doug third from the left. He leaves a little early, and he's all tangled up in the gate as the rest of the field hammers into turn number 1. That opened the door for a Tishner sweep of both classes. He used the whole racetrack en route to the second moto 125 win.
You know, I'm just glad I won both classes. You know, it was pretty tough after racing last night and today. And, you know, I'm glad I got the winner's share of the purse.
Congratulations, Ron Tishner. Welcome back, Ron Lechien. And when we come... are ready to return to the outdoor national wars this weekend. Bob Varsha tells us who was hot when the series left off and what to expect when it resumes this weekend.
With just 7 events to decide the AMA 250 Outdoor National Championship, the slightest bobble among the front runners could decide the title. Just ask 2-time defending champ Jeff Stanton.
It's going to be a tough season. I'm sure it's going to be just like Supercross champion myself right on through. He's a tough competitor, and a strong man will win, I'm sure, so I'm looking forward to it.
In round 1 back in early March at Florida's Gatorback Park, Stanton split the first 2 motos with former 250 world champion Bale, leaving the Honda factory teammates tied for first in points. That tie was broken 3 weeks later and 3,000 miles away in Sacramento, California. Rain turned the track to a quagmire and cut the program to a single moto. While Stanton sank, Bale swam to a runner-up finish behind surprise winner John Dowd, a Honda privateer from Massachusetts who had finished 5th in Florida. As a result, Bale holds a 13-point lead over Dowd, 22 over Stanton, as the series moves to Mount Morris, Pennsylvania this weekend. Dowd will try to ride despite an injury at last weekend's Supercross event, and unless Stanton has a big day, Bale may be the 1991 champion. In contrast to the short 250 season, the 125 class has 13 dates and therefore a different strategy. In Florida, defending class champ Guy Cooper took a decisive win over California hot shoe Tyson Voland and last season's runner-up Mike Kiedrowski. In the mud at Sacramento, Kiedrowski's Kawasaki and Suzuki-mounted Cooper sputtered to 5th and 6th places behind the Yamaha of another Yankee surprise, Doug Henry. On the points table, Henry splits the preseason favorites. In the absence of last year's Mount Morris 125 winner Bale, this could be the best race of the day. Reporting for Motorworld, I'm Bob Varsha.